Do you own a Mustang? Are you in the business of flooring the accelerator pedal and taking out a crowd of people? Well, I've got a tip for you and every other driver of many different types of vehicles. Just before we dive into the actual driving mistakes, I want to quickly go over the fundamentals that you need to have to even be able to understand this video. So when I talk about driving fast, that means you have the foundational level of understanding how a car operates and what you should and shouldn't do. You have a basic understanding of at least what oversteer is, what understeer is. You understand basics like power and torque and front wheel drive and rear wheel drive and how those differences affect the way the car operates. So I'm not going to go into any super basics here. If I say something like the apex of the corner, you have to be able to understand what I'm saying. I am working on a super basics video for every term you may need to understand. That will be linked up here once it exists. When you're coming out of a corner, it's very satisfying to floor the throttle. It feels good. Racing drivers will use this in cool ways, like drifters will be drifting, rally drivers will use it to get around hairpins quicker, but you and I are not racing drivers. We're driving 99% of the time on the street. We don't need to be going sideways. I'm not trying to put thoughts in your head, but maybe you should subscribe. It's free, and I make videos like this all the time, almost every week. It does feel satisfying to build your throttle through a corner, right? Feels good. But you have to do it in the right way. You have to build up to that limit of grip and feel it out. You can't just think that full throttle is okay, ever. You have to work up to it. So if we go through this corner, it's a fairly shallow one, and we floor the throttle, I'm actually okay. I was on the limit of slip there. I could feel the back end just start to wiggle. But if you're stationary, you're coming out of a junction, for example, and you think you're going to get away with just flooring the throttle, you're not. The majority of people complain about this or worry about this from a rear wheel drive perspective. I actually think this stuff is similarly dangerous in front wheel drive cars too. Because what happens in front wheel drive when you give it too much throttle coming out of a corner is, if I did it right now in front wheel drive, it would push me out of the corner directly into that car. Now, yes, rear-wheel drive is also scary because you lose the back end and you can go spinning, pirouetting into the Lord's Combermere. Front-wheel drive is just as bad. And by extension, four-wheel drive is pretty much the same thing as front. So don't think you're immune to this because you drive a front-wheel drive car. So how do you avoid this? Well, you need finesse with your right foot. When you use the throttle, it's not a switch. You build throttle in order to feel out the grip. And if the grip's good, you can go completely full and enjoy the car, right? But if you get to half and it starts to get a bit unhappy and starts spinning and scrabbling and looking for grip, then you know you've reached the limit. And then you're never going to be in a situation where you've gone full, realize there isn't enough grip, and are already going sideways before you can address the issue. Another thing that people get wrong all the time, because it affects everything else, is reading the road surface. Now this means weather. I've got the perfect example for this today, because today's a lovely sunny day, but yesterday was absolutely pouring. So we've got all this patchy, horrible stuff on the ground, which is really difficult for driving fast. You should try to be aware of what the weather situation is around where you're going to drive. If it's raining, you're going to have a lot less grip. If it's dry and sunny, you're going to have a lot more grip, which means the car's going to give up more violently. And then you have the worst case scenario, which is situations like today where it looks dry, but it's greasy and muddy and horrible. You can see the patches. Sometimes they'll be on the road. There's little bits of mud everywhere. It's not nice. And what that means is when you're going through a corner, you've got to be very careful of what's on the inside of that corner, because you never know what you might end up with. You see the pothole. There's all sorts of stuff Now it gets a little bit drier in the middle, but it's still wet on this side, so I can lose one of the rear tires if I put too much throttle in. So it's really tricky. You've got to look out for this stuff, because it will catch you out. Now this one applies to drivers of any vehicle. I've seen van drivers do this. I've seen hot hatch owners do this. Big rear wheel drive powerful car owners do this. And that's just going too hot into a corner. There's a very simple way to avoid this problem. You just have to read the corner before you enter it. Corner entry is a big place where people make mistakes. Going too fast into a corner is actually a really natural thing to happen. You're enjoying your car, you're having fun, you're using the loud pedal, and you enter a corner a bit hot because you haven't read the corner properly. But it's very, very dangerous, because it's one of those things where if you enter a corner too hot, you're stuck. There is actually nothing you can do to mitigate that issue. Once you've entered the corner hot, you're in hot. So what I'm going to show you here is how to avoid entering hot in the first place. So what you want to do is read the corner on corner entry. There is something called the vanishing point that we're going to look for. It's the point at the end of the road where you can't see anymore, where the two lines of the road connect together as they are now over this crest. It's over there. Right now it's moving towards me. Now it's just shot into the distance again. You want to be looking for this vanishing point because it tells you something important. When the point is moving towards you, as it is right now, that means the corner is about to tighten. Watch where the vanishing point is. It's getting closer, still getting closer, still getting closer, and only now it's moving away. This might sound kind of basic because it sounds like I'm saying just look at the corner. But to be honest, you'd be surprised how many people are just looking at the little piece of road in front of them. They're not lifting their eyes and looking as far as they can. You want to be looking where that blue car is in the distance, the third one that's just gone out of view. So the important thing about this vanishing point that's useful to us is that when the point's moving towards us, the corner is tightening. And the faster that point moves towards us, the more the corner is tightening. So having the knowledge that that's what's happening is going to give you the confidence to go through any corner, because you know what's coming up, even if you've never driven that road before. Now, caveat, there are things called decreasing radius corners where the tightness of the turn is different at the start and at the end of the corner. But those are fairly few and far between, and as long as you leave yourself some margin, so you're not trying to go through the corner at 10/10. So you're driving on the road, just leave yourself some wiggle room and then you'll be absolutely fine. Even if the corner does tighten, you just turn the steering wheel more because you're not going to be at the limit of grip. So use this to avoid making the mistake of entering a corner too quickly. This video is a brief summary of learning to understand corner entry, but I've got a full, more dedicated video, if you click up here, that goes into this at length. People suck at braking, and I'm not talking about advanced stuff like trailing the brakes into corners to get more rotation out of the car, or any of these advanced race-inspired tips. I'm talking about the basics, not braking in the middle of a corner, for example. Let's get out on the road and I'll give you a few practical examples. Braking is not as simple as you think. This is the one thing I love about driving. Everything is a skill-based activity. You might think, oh, there's a pedal in the middle of the pedal box, you press it, you slow down. Can't be that hard, right? But the pedal is incredibly important because it's your number one source of weight transfer, along with the steering wheel. But the only way to get the weight to transfer forward is by braking. So the mistake I see absolutely all the time is people misusing the brakes and upsetting the balance of the car, which then leads to them having a big crash. So how do you avoid this? Well, there's a few things you should never do with the brakes. Let me demonstrate. First of all, braking should be done in a straight line before the corner. Not here, or here, or here, or here, or here. Braking should be done while your steering is straight. The reason for this is your tires only have so much grip. So if you combine braking and turning, you're going to overload one of the wheels. It's either going to slide or the weight transfer is going to get upset, and that's also going to cause a slide. Separate the two actions. Braking, off the brakes, turning. If you do this, you can literally never go wrong. Braking, off the brakes, turning. You've completely separated the two actions, so you're not going to get that overload of a single tire because you're combining them. It's really, really useful. Now, what you can do, as you get more confident with driving, is you start to learn that actually you can combine the two. And now, this is where it gets into the advanced stuff. I don't want to tell you this in a way that you guys just go out and try it on your own and end up binning your cars, right? You've got to be incredibly careful when you do this. But you can combine the two actions, and that's called trail braking. Like, if I brake in the middle of this corner, I didn't die, right? But the reason for that is I'm going fairly slowly for this car, and also, you know, I've got massive tires and it's a bloody M2. What you want to do to start learning trail braking is don't do it here. This is not appropriate for that stuff. Go to a track day, go to an abandoned car park and learn there. Because what trail braking will do is unweight the back of your car. You're going to put all your weight over the front wheels to give them extra grip, but it's going to mean your back wheels have very little grip and are very likely to start fishtailing and spinning out and just causing a mess. So I won't tell you how to do it, but if you feel like that's something that you would benefit from, go and do your research. Go and get out on a track day and learn a little bit about trail braking. This one really grinds my gears, literally. I go out for a lot of spirited drives with people, and the one thing I notice all the time is they are constantly in the wrong gear. There's two main causes of this. Number one, people are in automatic transmissions and they just leave the car in automatic or in sport. And when cars make their own decisions, they generally get it wrong. So if you're in an auto, stick that stick over into manual or press the button or however you engage it and use the gears yourself. You'll have paddles back here, or you can wiggle the lever back and forwards to go up and down the gears. But make those decisions yourself. You can read what's coming up and you can make better choices than the car can. And if you're in a manual, don't be lazy. I have friends that will go for a full day out of driving and only use third and fourth gear 95% of the time. All right, they'll take off first, second, third, fourth, stay in fourth. Come up to a corner, go back to third. Go past the corner, go back up to fourth. And yeah, I get it. Some cars got a lot of torque and you can make do, but you're not getting the most out of the car. And most importantly, you're not having the most fun. Changing gears feels involving. It makes you feel one with the machine. You get more out of the car. So use that gearbox. People always seem to be in the wrong gear for the situation. Someone might say I'm in the wrong gear right now because I'm at under 2,000 revs. But that's a conscious choice because I'm taking it easy. See, if I wanted to go around this corner a little bit hot, I would choose second. And that would give me the response and the performance that I wanted. Now, if I'm taking it a little bit easier because I'm talking to you guys and I'm going 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, I might choose third, as I often do. A very flexible gear, slightly relaxed throttle response. I have a full video up here that goes at length on all the differences the power band makes. How the RPMs of your engine will affect the way the car drives and responds and behaves. So just, if you don't really understand RPM and power band and how your gears affect the drive and why second gear has more poke and is more likely to make me go sideways, if you don't understand all of that, go and watch that video because it will do an in-depth job of explaining it to you. Some people would say, oh my God, you're in an M2, you're in 6th gear at 50, doing like 1800 up, maybe 1600 RPM. Why? That's because I'm just trying to get down this road. There's no potential for having fun here. It's just a straight piece of road. I'm not going to go 140. So just take it a bit easier. Now there's some corners coming up. We'll drop down to 4th. That gives us a little bit of response, which is what we want. Now we're down to 3rd. We've got a little bit of performance for these corners here. And I don't want to destroy the speed limit, so I'm going to go all the way up to 5th, because we've got a little boring straight. But this is how your gears really affect the drive. I see people all the time that are like out for a spirited drive, and they just stay in one gear, and then they're using full throttle, and yeah, you get a little bit of acceleration, but you don't have that response. It's not enjoyable. Work that gearbox. It's so enjoyable, it's so fun, and it makes the car perform better. It's like a win-win-win. There's no downside. Everybody should be doing it all the time. And this doesn't just apply to manual cars. If you've got an auto, you will have a way to take over control. Go into manual mode and make your own selections. Watch this video up here. I demonstrate how automatic gearboxes, even the best ones, are rubbish at choosing the correct gear for the right situation. They can't plan ahead in the way that a human can. A human can have a look and see what's coming up and make better decisions. So you're a strong character. You like to take the bull by the horns. You like to jam that gearbox in and jam it in again and jam it in again when you're going wide open through 1, 2, 3. But you never learn a little bit of finesse. You never learn the Italian school of driving, where they drive super hard, but delicately. Let's go out on the road and we're going to talk about a lot of clutch. Also, when driving fast, you can't just be slamming gears and going, bah! It feels really good, but it's really bad for your car. Just like with not losing the back end, there's a level of finesse that is required. The clutch and the gear lever, the way they operate together, it should be smooth and gentle and delicate. So it's all about being smooth. Even when you're accelerating, we're in 2nd now, little bit of acceleration. Did you hear the gap in between 2nd and 3rd? We'll do the same, we're accelerating in 3rd. Did you hear the gap between 3rd and 4th? If you just leave a little moment's delay and slip the clutch in between the 2 gears, it will make for a much smoother transition. It will mean you don't get that jerk in between the gears, and it will mean you don't get an upset in the balance of the car because of the weight transfer of that jerk. But smoothness is easy to learn. Just go out for a drive, throw the gearbox about. If it's a little bit jerky, try and do it differently. There's one thing I've learned about clutches is that there's this perfect sweet spot. If you operate the clutch too slowly, it will feel uneasy and a bit jerky. If you operate the clutch too quickly, it will be definitely be jerky. There's this sweet spot right in the middle where you're operating it just right. So all you do, go out for a drive, change gear, do it a bit slower, see if that feels good, do it a bit quicker, see if that feels good, and you'll just naturally find that balance point in the middle. My name's Mick, I drive cars, peace.